So, today I'm going to talk about how I become a professional artist. It all started when I did the online mastery program from the Milan Art Institute. That was a little bit more than a year. And before that, I didn't even paint. I did paint oil in high school, but that was it. Before that, I was doing some sketching, watercolor, but always as a hobby. And when I took the program, I started taking it seriously, and now I work full-time in this. So this video is divided in three, just like the mastery program. So the first part is all the classical learning and the classical painting of a regular art school, I believe. The second part is about finding your voice, your style, mixed media. And the third part is your own portfolio that we have to do at the end. It is around 30 pieces. So I'm going to show you all my paintings, all my progress, everything that I learned in, so I can share it with you. Maybe you will want to join the program, maybe you can learn by yourself. Either way, we all can learn through that. And also you can see that I believe that anybody can paint or anybody can become a professional artist as long as you put the hours, the effort, and the learning. It doesn't matter if you have talent or not. At the end of the day, it's all about practice and being encouraged about it and be passionate about it and just follow your dream. I'm going to tell a little bit about me, my background, where I'm from, everything. So I'm from Chile. Raised and born there, and I moved here to LA. I'm currently living in Los Angeles, California, 3 years ago. I moved in here because I wanted to study animation. I got caught in work. I started working as an architect. That is my background. And at the end of the day, I got caught into the regular job. And everything changed when the pandemic started. And I was working from home, so I was having this extra free time and I wasn't going anywhere. And I saw it in Instagram, these ads that always appear, and I saw the Milan Art Institute program. And I didn't enter the first time. I remember like just sitting and pass through it. But then like the third time, I started like getting motivated and thinking like, maybe I can do this. Maybe I don't know what it's about. I never heard them about them before. I just saw a picture and I saw that I thought that the painting was awesome. And I remember thinking, I want to paint like that. I want to paint not even that style, that it was so different. I think it was one of Dimitri Milan's paintings. It was so different and it has so much passion and soul into it that I thought like, that's what I want. So I took the course. I remember at that moment, I think I used the last of my cash. I didn't even have extra money to buy the materials, but the first part, they involve a lot of charcoal drawing, so I figured out like, I will wing it. Even if I have to like start later the old painting until I save up to buy the materials, because they were a little expensive. We didn't receive like a material list, and it was around 800 or 1,000. That supposedly is cheap for all the kind of materials you're going to use, but for me it was a huge amount of money. But either way, I have some pencils around, I have some charcoal, and I think I invested probably around $40 the first month, and maybe a little more because I bought like 4 colors of oil painting. It was a list of like 20 colors, but I thought like I'm gonna start buying little by little, even if I had to use less colors in the first assignments. It's more about the learning and the experience and just trying that than being perfect and have everything you needed. So this is my first oil painting in the mastery program, and probably in 15 years. This is how I started, and I also have here in the background, this is how I'm currently going. This is what I'm painting right now. It's not finished, but you can already tell like how much you can learn and transition in a year once you find your voice, you find your style, and you figure out who you are as an artist and how you paint as an artist. My first painting, it was challenging for me because I was super limited in resources, and you can even tell in the painting that I think I probably used 3 or 4 colors. That was it. Still, I figured out you can do pretty much a lot with that. You don't need much. You just probably need your 3 primary colors and you can wing it. I did it for the first 3 or 4 assignments, I believe. The second week, it was about rating underpainting. This was also challenging because in the classes they have rating colors that you have to use it was a really cool technique that you use them in the background, then you paint everything black, and then you start doing a subtraction technique. Again, I had a limited palette, but still I went through it, and I was still proud about it, and I was proud about myself. It's the first landscape I have ever painted. I could change a lot of it. If right now I'm painting this one, it could be completely different. This is my stage of no style, no technique, just trying. And I think it was a really fun assignment because I did use a lot of palette knife that right now I use in a lot of my paintings. The second assignment was about learning value, and this was I think it was graphite, and we have to draw from a picture into the paper and transfer it, I think even in the same size. It was a really fun exercise. It sounds really simple. It was only graphite, and it was only like measure proportions and just transfer it. But at the end of the day, you realize with just one material how you can use the lightest light and the darkest dark only with that, and it still create something realistic, and that was pretty awesome. This other assignment was my first portrait ever that I have ever painted. It was really scary because actually the portrait is called monster portrait, and it looks like a monster until you're almost done. Like 90% of the painting it looks like a monster, and you have to wait sometimes like a couple of days for the paint to dry, and it's scary because you think you'll ruin it until just the last end that you make it. It's not perfect, of course. It was the first one, and I have acquired a lot of practice since then, and you can tell even there how much I have learned in the process, but that's how you do it. My first painting wasn't perfect. I didn't just paint majestically a portrait just in my first try. Actually, to get to a level of paint this type of portrait, it took me a year and more, and I paint since then probably dozens of portraits. I will say like I paint more like 40 or 50, even like, or sketch. It's just practice, practice, and practice, and that is how you learn, and that's how you evolve. And you should never be discouraged if you don't like a painting. I remember thinking so many times during the program, sometimes like you bomb, sometimes you just don't get it right, but it's okay. It's part of the learning experience, and you just have to go through it. After that, we paint charcoal still life. This one was hard for me. It's not that I hate it, I just don't like it. I feel it's so old school, and I remember being in this assignment, and I was thinking like I came into the school because I want to be more modern, or paint like cool paintings, super modern, super urban style, and then painting like a card box. But at the end of the day, I think it's one of the ones that I most enjoy, because you have to set your own like box and lighting, and then you start painting, and it's a fun way of it's not paint, then you have to start drawing, and it's a really fun way because you use a lot of eraser. You start like with almost everything black, and you just start to erasing. It's really cool. And then you use like fun materials. I bought like an electric eraser that changed everything, and until now every time I draw with charcoal or graphite, I have to use that eraser. Then after this was called fat over lean, and we have to paint an animal. I really wanted to try this technique, and it's a really cool one. I love this painting, and I remember I get discouraged because I was so excited. Like for me, it was the first painting that it has more style. I start seeing like my voice a little bit in this one, and I remember showing to my family, and nobody liked it really much because I think they thought this ibex it's not a pretty animal. I personally love this animal, and I found it beautiful. I remember showing it to everybody. It's like, oh yeah, I like your painting, I like your colors, but it's so ugly. And I started getting worried that people were calling my paintings ugly, and thinking, I think you have two paths over there. Or you either choose what you love and you stick to it. That is actually the path that I took, and don't listen to people's opinion, because there's opinions about everything, and there's gonna be people that is gonna like it and love it, and there's people that are gonna hate it. I choose to paint what it makes me happy, because at the end of the day, I am the one doing it. And I have learned that there's always someone that likes it, and there's always someone. There's so many people in this world. There's gonna be at least one person that is gonna like what you're doing. In this exercise, I personally learned for my style that I also use it a lot. It's the movement of the body is not only, it doesn't come from like the torsion of the body itself or how it's moving. I realized that it comes from the shadow and the difference of value. So if you can see here, I start getting more like aggressive or more hard lines through where like the movement was, and that's one of the things I still use in my paintings right now. Then it came the perspective class. This one was a tricky one. For me, it was a little easier. I have more leverage because I have an architecture background, so perspective I already knew a little bit about it. So, but it was really fun. I enjoyed painting a city. It's the only time I have painted a city. It's actually one of the hardest exercises that I did. This building that I painted here, it wasn't tricky about the perspective side. It was tricky because of how many detail or where your focal point is going to be. You can paint every detail in all over the city, or you can paint one tiny detail in one window when you want the people pay attention to it. And I struggle with everything, and I think at the end of the day I put all my effort in the reflection out of it, because it was my favorite part of the image, and that's why I chose this image. This week was super challenging for me. This one was portrait from life, and when I was doing this course, it was the middle of the pandemic, and I didn't have at that point anybody to be there to like pose for me. So I figured out, okay, I really want to practice this technique, so I don't want to use a picture. So what I ended up is I started painting myself. I did a self-portrait. And that is already tricky. Just for being a self-portrait is already challenging, but also I was starting doing it, but this wasn't a lesson of self-portrait, so I didn't have like the techniques or know how to do it. So I set a mirror and I started drawing myself. So this was my charcoal drawing from a mirror, and it's really disproportionate. I keep moving. It's so hard to be still while you're drawing, while you're looking at yourself, and it was a tiny round mirror that I can barely see myself, so all the angles are difficult. So then I figured out, okay, I need a bigger mirror for my oil painting. So I did it in my bathroom, that I have the biggest mirror. So I set up everything in the bathroom. I was in front of the mirror. It did come a little better. It's still super disproportionate, and you can tell even in the eyes, because it's probably how I was looking when I was painting them. So one is looking one direction and one the other direction, and everything is a little twitch because I keep moving, and I keep like, every time like I look at my nose, it was probably move a little bit. My mouth, it was probably moving to the other side, and my two eyes are like looking completely weird. But even besides that, I'm still really like happy about the result. It was a good exercise, and it was a good lesson, and since then I'm really scared about self-portraits. Then after this, I love this one. This one was a small scale realism. We have to paint and draw realism, and you have to do it. It was the first time it was such a tiny scale, and it was fun. I realized that I can paint realism. I didn't know that. And it didn't take me long because it was a small painting. It was challenging. At the beginning I thought like, oh, it's so small, I'm gonna do it in less than an hour. It probably took me more. It probably took me around 3 or 4 hours, but it's still, I learned a cool technique, a special technique that I still use right now. Actually, in all my paintings have a little about realism, and this was also painted. I'm painting as an ALLA PRIMA. That is actually no drying time in between. I think at the end I still added like a couple of strokes at the end, but this is actually the technique I use for all my realism, and every eye that I paint in everything, this is how I paint it. This is where I learned that specific skill. And this eagle was my other realism, and also it was like, I was surprised. I even remember this one in a Zoom meeting. I have a Zoom meeting with my friends, just catching up. I think it was a Friday or a Saturday night, and I did it while we were talking, and then at the end of the day it's like, huh, look at this, look at what can I do even like when I'm talking, and it was fun. Also, this one, oh, this was fun. This, it's in a black background that actually I should try more, because now that I'm seeing it, I loved it. It's completely different. It's like the opposite about you always draw, because all the time you have to use so much like materials and techniques to bring the life out of like a white paper, but with this one you're actually only adding light, so it's like a completely opposite exercise. And it was challenging and it was super enjoyable, and at the end of the day you realize you don't need to like paint or draw everything to make one shade, because this is more like an outline. It's only like a light on the left side of the rhino, and then like the shadows complete the form. It's pretty cool. And this other one, I actually love it, and I still use it almost every day. I actually doodle with this technique every morning, like 30 minutes, just to open my right brain side and just loose it up. And especially those days that I have to do all computer work, at least I know that I sketched something. This one was a cool one. This is foreshortening, and I remember I really enjoyed this drawing because it was the first time we did a composition. Before that, it was all one image that you're recreating exactly. This one, you have like a little more freedom about play with the perspective and the composition, and pick like a mood board and think how to do it. So it was the first time I thought I was getting more creative about what I was doing. And there's people that definitely did that before. I am the kind of person that I like to follow the instructions exactly as they am, because I trust the teacher. Like, if they tell me I have to do it this way, it's for a reason. So I never try to add more of my style or more elements into the painting I was doing. I was just trying to study how they were telling me, because I thought this is a lesson, that there's something here that I'm learning and I shouldn't like mix with something else. But with this one I start feeling more creativity, and that's when I started getting excited about the second part of the course. Like, yes, what is coming next to this? Like, we're finally also like, at this point I thought that I already have some kind of level to start exploring my own style, and I was also getting a little tired of all these like tedious exercises, not because they were boring, because I was starting to create more. Like, okay, I really learned this, but what about now? Like, what next? These ones were my last paintings of this section, that is white on white and black on black. There was also limited color palette that I didn't do because I didn't have more canvases, and also because I was a little discouraged I really wanted to go to the next part. I was getting a little tired of this classical learning, and I was also dedicating so many hours, and I thought that, okay, I already learned this, I'm ready for more, and you have to wait every week until the course is released. So I was like super anxious about waiting that, and then I had to wait like the break time, and there was also a final assignment that you have to do a painting of your own in this section that I actually never did. But so yeah, that was the first part of the whole course. This was probably 3 or 4 months, I believe. I learned a lot, but at this point I was ready for more. And the next video, the part 2, is gonna be about mixed media, all the cool materials we learn how to use and we try, and actually when I find my voice, the moment I actually found it, and how I actually got my style or voice or whatever you want to name it. So thank you so much for watching this. I hope you like it. If you like it, please press like and subscribe if you want to watch part 2 and part 3 later on. I'm gonna try to post every week. If you're doing the mastery program, if you're thinking about doing it, if you're doing another art class, please let me know. We can talk about it. Which part, if you already did it, which one was your challenging part about this? Which one do you like, you didn't like? What are your exercises that you did? Let me know in your comments. So thank you so much and see you next week.